decide to show up for your world now?
I have decided that it's important to show up as like the optimist and the like outgoing, happy person that I am, and also show that life can be hard. And I'm very transparent about all of that. That I am an optimist and I do see the best in people and in situations and all the things. And there are still days that I feel paralyzed with sadness and that I cry without even realizing why. Um, and I'm very open about that. And I've always been someone who it's always been, I've, I've always very easily been a communicator. Like, I'm like, why wouldn't you share your feelings? Well, don't you want me to know how you're feeling? I want you to know how I'm feeling. That's how we can connect with each other. Let's share. But it's become even more important for like survival and for connection now, because I want people to know that I have a very full, happy life. And there's also a big piece missing. Um, and I think it's okay that other people feel that way and that they're honest about it, that you don't have to show up and be like sunshine and rainbows all the time, that it's okay if there's a hole, whatever that might be. And it's okay to share that, whether it's on social media or in person or with the people you love. I think a lot of times culturally, we hold a lot of our negative emotions in and they will just eat you alive. And so important to know how to identify when they're eating you alive, to know how to like listen to your body and seek help or guidance or further connection when needed, and to also celebrate whatever you want and take as many selfies. I am a big proponent of like, take all the damn pictures. Take them, because I look back at the pictures I have of my kid and there's like only a certain amount and then that's it forever. Take all the pictures of all the experiences and all the things and put it all over social media and don't worry at all about what anyone thinks. Who cares? It's your life. These are your memories. It's your, bubble that you want to remember. Don't give that power away. And also take care of yourself. You don't have to take care of other people, right? Like all of the things I have done are to take care of myself. And in doing so, and in sharing that, people have reached out to me and said, thank you. This has been so helpful for me. And if in taking care of myself in a way that is meaningful can impact others, isn't that what like it's all about? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
100%. I remembered my question.
I'm ready.
I know this isn't to compare your story to anybody else's story, so anybody who's watching this now or on the replay, I'm asking you, in your journey, how did it look for you being okay with being happy? When did that happen? Like being okay with that?
I don't really know. Yeah, that's a really thoughtful insight that I don't really have a good answer to. Yeah, I think it just kind of, I wouldn't say it happened. I feel like I probably, I worked to cultivate happiness in my life again. I will say I wasn't necessarily excited to get pregnant again. I'm so grateful that we have Miles, but if anyone is listening and is like, I should just be over the moon excited all the time about being pregnant again. And I hated being pregnant. It was terrifying the whole time.
Wow.
I was really grateful to have, a healthy child the second time around, but I hated it because all I could think about was, You could die too. This one could die too. It could just be another thing. I mean, who knows what? I mean, yeah. And even I would say I struggled with postpartum depression, obviously. And then I also struggled with postpartum depression after Miles was born, but it was not severe. So I didn't realize it until later. So even though I was like, I think people thought, would have thought I was happy, and I was, but also like I probably should have been on medication. This past year, almost, since I started taking Lexapro, has felt like a weight was lifted off my chest. Now, I should say I'm also I have very high anxiety. I probably could have benefited from medication a long time ago. And I have taken care of my anxiety with exercise and how I eat and lifestyle choices, right? But finally going on an antidepressant was the extra weight that I needed to like finally feel like it's okay to be happy all the time, I guess. It was very freeing, and I didn't realize how overwhelmed I felt until I wasn't overwhelmed like that anymore, if that makes sense.
I can have empathy towards that. I think of that sometimes. I don't know what your experience is as a mother, but I've talked to a couple women about this thing that happens to me every once in a while where I'll just be going along in my life just normal, and then all of a sudden just for no reason at all think of like something really horrible happening to my son. And it's just like a split minute, it's not like I don't have like mental problems or anything, but it just every once in a while just something will just fly into my head, and for like a full solid 30 seconds just a whole journey of like, if this happened then this would happen, and then he would die, and this is what my life would be, and I go through all of these emotions for no reason. And one of the things that I've talked about this with other mothers, and other mothers do relate, where they do have sensations like that every once in a while where something happens, and it's sad for a second. But I think of that sometimes, and I think of mothers who have gone through loss and the cognitive dissonance that must happen regarding being okay with being happy. And I don't know why it bothers me, but it's like it bothers me to think that there are individuals who are stuck in that. Mothers who are stuck in not being okay. And what a frustrating conundrum that must be, to not feel like that's something that they can do. Do you have any advice for women that might be going through that? Because that's like a thing.
I think the main way to address that is to take the onus off those of us that have had this kind of experience, and to put it on society as a whole to normalize the fact that people lose children, that women lose children. We have to have more conversations, and we have to get rid of the like, oh, you had a miscarriage at 6 weeks. Well, at least it was only 6 weeks. We have to stop saying things like that. We have to stop saying things like, well, at least they weren't 5 years old. I mean, at least it was early enough on that they didn't feel any pain, or right. Like, we have to normalize conversations about loss in general, about infertility, about miscarriage, about child loss, about stillbirth. And we have to like have a collective understanding that it is a lifelong grief forever. I mean, I can't tell you how many women. So at the time that, well, I should say shortly after we lost Cohen, I started teaching a water aerobics class. And, you know, most of my class participants were like 60 or older. And when I was pregnant with Miles, I shared with most, they threw me a surprise baby shower and I cried. I cried because it was, you know, so special, but also I cried because I didn't get to have a baby shower with Cohen. And I told them that, you know, I said, most of you don't know this, but we lost our first child. And I can't tell you how many in the room of these women, 60 and older, were like, oh, I lost 3 children to stillbirth. Oh, I could never have children. Oh, I had however many miscarriages. They knew dates. They knew how old their children would be. Women never forget this stuff.
Wow.
They never forget it. If you know women, anyone knows a woman that's had a miscarriage, they know how old their kid would be. They know.
Wow.
It's in their bones forever. So I think the way to really get to the place where we can say to women, it's okay to not be okay, but also it's okay to like find happiness in other ways in your life,
Yeah.
is that we have to normalize the fact that their loss was like that it impacts them forever. We have to know as a society that it is something that will impact women forever. And of course, the other people in their family are impacted, but the actual woman who experiences bleeding, having a miscarriage, and then having to get a D&C because her body didn't have a full miscarriage on her own. A woman like me who gives birth and, you know, I have to hold my dead child and I get to do skin to skin, but there will never be, you know, warmth because he's dead, right? Like, a woman who goes full term and then in the delivery room, her baby dies in the birth canal and she has to give birth to her child at 40 weeks dead, a perfectly formed baby who dies, right? Like, that shit happens every day.
Yeah.
People are losing children, having miscarriages, struggling with infertility every day. And the only way we can say to women, it's okay that you're not okay, and we want to help you find the spark in your life of happiness in other ways, is normalize the conversations around loss. Because holy shit, as soon as you say to a room, no matter the age, as soon as I'm like, yeah, we have 2 kids, one is dead, he died, you know, he had a rare and fatal syndrome, everyone's like, oh yeah,
Wow.
I've had 5 miscarriages. It's insane. I mean, when I walk into a room now and I look around, I actually have a bit of social anxiety now, which I never had before, because when I meet new people, I'm like, oh God, somebody's going to ask me how many kids I have, and it's going to be awkward, and they're going to be weird, and I'm just not going to go. But when I walk into a room, or I'm at the grocery store or wherever, all I can think about is, I wonder if every woman in here has struggled with fertility or miscarriage. I wonder how many have had a stillbirth. I wonder what their children's names were. I wonder if they named them. I wonder if they gave birth in a place and a time when they just took the baby away and you never saw them, because that's what used to happen. You would have a baby and they would let's just pretend this didn't happen. Let's take the baby.
Wow.
I can't even imagine. Obviously get really fired up about all of these pieces, so feel free to
That's fine.
stop me. I think this stuff is so important because women are carrying so much anyway for families. And then we are basically asking them to quietly carry their grief. And that's unacceptable.
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been wonderful.
Thanks for letting me share. Yeah.
I have a hard time transitioning because it's it seems so callous to go from just one question to the next. Um, because there's obviously so much depth
Yeah.
with this. How do you, for my own understanding, how do you have group discussions once a month for like a set amount of time? How do you even do that?
So easy.
Like you could just go on forever.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
talking to one person. What's the time limit on that? Do you have like, is it just like until you want to go home? How do you do that?
I mean, we say it's 2 hours, but like this past week we were there for 3. Um, I mean, there's always something to talk about. And if we
Yeah.
have somebody new come, then we always basically just open up the floor and say, anyone who wants to, you don't have to share if you don't want to. You can just be here and we hold space with you. But we basically share our stories. So if there's anybody who's new, everyone who's comfortable shares their story about why they're there. And then if we have time, we have like questions and stuff that we can ask, but usually it's more like, okay, we're coming in. Like this time it was like, okay, we're at the anniversary of a lot of deaths, of a lot of like the children that, have died that are, what are you doing for their birthday? How did you handle, just all the things, right? And next support group will be discussing, all right, we're going into the holiday season. How you feeling? How are you
Wow.
preparing? How do you like the holiday season is raw for me because Cohen was born right before Thanksgiving and then we had to celebrate Christmas and New
Wow.
Year's and I was like, fuck these holidays. Like I
Yeah.
should be pregnant, like real excited about doing first Christmas next year. And instead I'm like a vacant tomb with no child.
Wow.
So there's always something to talk about. Um, And honestly, like we're just such a family. Those of us that are there regularly, and then the new people that come, we like just blend them into our family, our support group family. And we text each other during, like we meet once a month, but we are still like in connection otherwise. And when there are anniversary dates for whatever, we reach out to each other. Although I will say, pretty standard, most lost moms that I know have like trouble remembering other people's dates, but like I can remember all of my dates, which is normal. So I'll be like, oh God, sorry, I forgot the other day, but I remembered. And that is just like normal
Yeah.
because we get it, right? Like your brain changes. I mean, when you have loss and you go through grief like that and depression and everything that comes with it, like the chemistry of your brain changes. I mean, there's so many facets to it, but we usually keep it around 2 hours. And if we need to, we stay longer. And we usually try. So October is basically Child Loss Awareness Month, Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And October 15th is Wave of Light Day. So for that, what that means is that at 7 o'clock local time around the world, you light a candle for an hour as basically in memory of all the children that have died, pregnancy and infant loss. So we didn't do anything last year because of COVID, but the year before we all got together here at my house and we had food. And then at 7 o'clock, we had all brought like our urns and the other things that we have from our children, and we put them on a table, kind of like a Day of the Dead situation, I guess, would be another way to explain it.
Wow.
And we lit candles in memory of our children and cried and shared stories. And that like doing those kinds of things along with when we meet normally for support group is really helpful, just to hold that space with each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
What kind of plans do you have going on for the next few years? Do you have any more plans for your group or
Mm.
family, business? What do you have going on?
I mean, I would love to get to a place where we could have our group meet once a month in person and once a month virtually. Um, at this point, myself and Ashley, who co-facilitates with me, we both have small children. So trying to fit another night a month in, along with everything else in our lives, just hasn't been a reality yet. But I would love that to eventually happen. Um, so that if for any reason people can't be there physically in person, they can still benefit from the connection. Um, I would love to write a book. I have a few book ideas, but I would love to write a book about my experience and because I read quite a few books in that first year that were so helpful to me about child loss.
Mm.
And I think, I would hope that my story could also be helpful to those that I'll never meet, but maybe they would, stumble across my book. So that is, on the list of things to do.
Absolutely.
Um, and as far as like business, I mean, I just want to continue to grow my business and have impact. And part of that is being able to have impact in that having more financial capacity to give to organizations that work with mothers and children and after loss and during loss and all sorts of different capacities. I'm very passionate about and have been since before we lost Cohen. The YWCA here in our town helps women and children that are experiencing homelessness transition into transitional housing and, sustainable life. And I feel even more passionate about that now. Like, how can we support women in whatever struggles they have had, whether it's childhood trauma or addiction or homelessness or whatever, so that they can in turn be a better parent for their children, so that their children can be better parents if they decide, just to like work through that cycle. Because parenting is hard in and of itself, and then throw in trauma and struggle and loss and depression and all the things, and we're just like, figure it out.
Yeah,
Figure it
exactly.
out.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So continuing to be able to be present with organizations that do work that support women specifically, and mothers more, in whatever way they need is so important. And the growth of my business means I can do more in that capacity. I mean, I still do. I give and promote those organizations now, but and one thing I would also really love to do that we are hoping to do here in Helena is donate a cuddle cot to the hospital. So a cuddle cot keeps after your child has died, it keeps them from going into rigor mortis. I know that sounds grotesque to people, but like basically keeps them cool so that you can spend as much time as you want with them without them starting to, go through the next
Wow.
process. Yeah. Yeah.
No kidding.
Which again, I know most people don't think about that, but like when your child dies, I mean, if I had been really in my right mind, I probably would have stayed at the hospital for a few days to spend with Cohen.
Wow.
And if your hospital has a cuddle cot, then that is a feasible option so that you can spend more time with your child. And I'm sure some people listening are like, that's weird. But, if you've never lost a child and you've never had to watch them wheel them out of the room for the last time, knowing that they're either going to be buried or cremated, like you just don't know.
Wow.
Every minute matters.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on here and watching me cry.
Thanks for watching me.
Well, you
equally.
have a reason to cry.